Hello, this is Chris, MTGO username RexStart, and I'm going to show you a replay from the Tribal Apocalypse Player Run event August 18th. This is my Spirits deck with the Repercussion Blasphemous Act combo that I just showed the deck tech for in the previous video. And I'm going to show you me playing against Kumagoro, who is playing an Artificer's, well, sorry, I should say a Goblin Welder deck. It's an idea that he ran in Constructs as his tribal shell a few months ago. I ran last month as Artificers and did fairly well with, and he's taken some of the ideas from my deck and worked them into his deck, but he is stuck with Constructs as his tribal shell. And I'm actually going to show you, Moto didn't save but a couple of matches from the event, and the most interesting one that kind of showed off both of our decks was one that I actually lost. So never let it be say I won't put a match up where I lost the game. I lost game one here, although I ended up finishing him off in 3. I'm going to show you, I've loaded up some of the cards that he played in the deck editor here to give you an idea what his deck does. Goblin Welder exchanges control of an artifact card in any player's graveyard with one that that player has in play. Usually using it on your own, although in weird corner cases you could use it on your opponent. And when I played this deck, I went back and looked at some replays when I played my own Goblin Welder deck and found a spot where I could have won a game if I had remembered that. So if you ever do play with this guy, remember that you can use it on your opponent. But the basic idea is you're going to put some oversized fatty in your graveyard. The usual suspects, Inkwell, Leviathan, they obviously have to be artifacts. Sphinx of the Steel Wind, that sort of thing. You're going to find a way to get them into your graveyard and then use this guy to sacrifice some kind of cheap artifact. Kuma's done some interesting things with his build here. First of all, sort of the tech that he adapted from my Artificer version of this was to use Anger. It allows you to basically hold the Goblin Welder until you can put it down and use it immediately so that he's not vulnerable to creature removal. Of course, that requires you to have mountains in your deck, whereas I believe his original version was using all artifact lands. So that did have to compromise his mana base a little bit, but it worked out very well for me, and it worked out very well for him. In our match here, he didn't do as well in the event overall as I think he could have. I think he probably just had some poor luck because his deck looked very well built from what I could tell and had a lot of good synergies in it. Intuition, which is what I used and he uses here, search your library for 3 cards. What you're basically going to do is you can search your library for, say, Anger, something that you want to be in the graveyard, and a Faithless Looting. And there's no possible combination. Whatever they choose to put in your hand, whatever they put in your graveyard, you're going to be able to get the right pieces in the yard, and because you'll have Anger, you can just drop your Goblin Welder. You can also use it in a pinch if you just need a Goblin Welder to just tutor up 3 Goblin Welders at instant speed and drop one and go off. His Constructs mana base, Kuma was going with his little combo here with Steel Overseer and Serrated Biskellion. He put a +1/+1 counter to basically negate the -1 counter from this guy and get a little bit of repeatable small removal from him. But it is important to have ways to interact with your opponent's board if your sort of combo Reanimator plan isn't going off. He also went with these guys here, Cathodion, and his older, wiser, ancient brother, Su-Chi, as a way that he can get value out of sacrificing the artifact. It could allow him to possibly cheat something into play and then hardcast something on the same turn. So anyways, we're going to see the match here. A couple things that I thought about if you were going to stay in Constructs that you could consider doing. If you were going to work with this deck yourself, you might use a modular creature. Arcbound Worker is the only one who is a construct, but you do get some value out of him going to the graveyard. Just incidental value. He may not end up being better than playing, say, Steel Overseer, but he is a little bit cheaper. You could go off a little faster. Another would be something like Silent Arbiter, which could hold them off. He's not vulnerable to a lot of the small removal that people play, and also, of course, Metal Worker. Although if you're playing if you had to, you're not playing all artifact lands, it's clearly not as strong as it could be. But that could allow you to hard cast some of your big artifacts. So, anyways, let's take a quick look at the match here. This was game one. Kuma had to go away for long stretches of this game. We ended up having to play our third game in a whole new match to give us both a fresh clock, because he was checking on a bunch of achievements that a player with a World Fire combo deck was getting. Very interesting, which I'm sure will be featured in the article. Anyways, you can see here I stumble on land out of the gate early, but then I pull a Chrome Mox to save myself from the fire there, and I'm sitting on all fire spouts, so I'm just going to try to control the board. And of course, since Kuma is playing a bunch of small creatures here, I'm going to get value out of my fire spouts. I'm really just trying to wait and see for my combo pieces to show up and hope that I can stall the game. I went ahead and ran the Swans out here, figuring that I could draw some cards off of it using a fire spout on my following turn, although I open myself up to him getting some value off of it as well here, as you'll see. Alright, so the Brainstorm drew me into my combo pieces. Now I just need mana. He's going to go ahead and Intuition. He's also got in his deck the Possessed Portal Lock, which he can use to lock me out of drawing cards and basically drain me while swapping it around with the Goblin Welders, I presume, so that it doesn't affect him. I think I looked at doing this when I was building my deck, but it seemed a little intricate. But it's a very Kuma thing to do, I should say. It's quite flashy if he can pull it off. But I'm not aware if he ever did in the event. Anyways, he's continuing to use Faithless Looting to sort of burn through, look for his pieces. He may have some in hand already and may just be playing patient here. Of course, once he sees that I've got Repercussion out, he knows that I'm very close to being able to go off. And so he's going to dump his Driskelion here, try to get some value, draw into something. So I'm assuming that he's probably still looking for the pieces, because if he had them, I think he would have tried to go off here. He gets me down to 5. For some reason, I don't block there. I think my thinking was that he was being desperate digging with the Triskelion, and I didn't want to just give him more with this, and I knew I was going to wipe the board, and I wasn't too worried, but as you'll see, it ends up costing me the game. I'm able to knock him down pretty good with a fire spout there, and I go ahead and let him untap, but at this point he's going to Intuition for his pieces. As you can see there, he got Anger, Faithless Looting, and the fatty that he wants, and so there was no combination that was going to prevent him from doing this. I gave him put the looting in the yard, but he just has to spend the extra 3 then to go ahead and use it, which he does. He casts out his Goblin Welder that he's been sitting on and is able to attack for lethal here. So anyways, that gives you a good idea of both the way that, that my deck would play, and also the way that Kuma's very interesting Goblin Welder deck will play out. And anyways, I appreciate you joining me. Thanks for watching the game, and as always, whenever I manage to play in the event, I'll try to upload a match and also a deck tech. If I can figure out how to get Moto to always record the matches that I play, then I might have a little better selection here going in the future. But anyways, thank you very much for joining me.